Hey everyone, Meet Kevin here. 2020 has been one heck of a year. We started with Australian wildfires, which is not good, and the stock market shot up to all-time highs. Then the Rona happened, and now, well, it feels like America's in chaos. Dow futures for tomorrow were down about 1 to 1.5% at the time of this recording, as market volatility is through the roof. And the fact is, we have another 7 months to go in 2020. Schools have to reopen, businesses have to reopen, somehow we have to go through another flu season, and we have no idea if there will actually be a vaccine. And quite frankly, I think some of us don't even know if we would take it when it comes out. Or you take it first. Well, in this video, I want to understand the impact, or at least think about the impact with you, of a $2,000 per month stimulus check and how it would affect America, specifically the George Floyd protests. Would $2,000 per month solve some of the issues that are causing the protests? I'm not saying, here's $2,000 a month, everybody go home. Well, yeah, obviously everybody's gonna go home if you give them a $2,000 check. But solve the actual underlying issues, not actually create a bandage, like, oh, just go home. No. We gotta solve the issues, right? Would $2,000 a month as a stimulus check solve that? And remember, we have a proposal for this, the Emergency Money for the People Act. It would give everyone $2,000 per month for 12 months. Well, 6 months, but probably 12 months. Anyway, let's get into that idea. This morning I posted a video that was about 25 minutes long outlining some facts of the George Floyd protests. I talked about the wealth of blacks versus the wealth of whites. I talked about the concentration of poverty in areas leading to worse education, worse healthcare, and really just robbing people of opportunities. Blacks, after all, are 2.5 times as likely to be in poverty, and a typical white family is 10 times as wealthy as a typical black family. And I also talked about how cops are incentivized to patrol poorer areas, yet courts and the justice system tend to favor cops over victims. But look, seriously, that paragraph I just explained to you, it doesn't do that 25-minute video justice. You should really watch it. But since I know that there is going to be a percentage of you that don't watch that video, kind of like there is a percentage of you in every single video who goes down to the links below and signs up for life insurance. Finally, it's life insurance Lauren and I have, and for those of you who go down to the link below, you can get 2 free stocks. If you deposit $100 with Webull, you get 2 free stocks worth up to $1,400. Well, I figured I would give you that quick little synopsis because it's helpful to understand where we're going. Because in this video, I go through what would happen if we had $2,000 of universal basic income and how this relates to the George Floyd protests. In 2017, The Hill reported that poverty can be a cause of violence. And I think that's oftentimes because there's this belief that violence causes poverty, when in reality it's mostly, and not always, right, most of the time, poverty causes violence. And this makes sense because if you don't have money and you can't survive, you gotta do what you gotta do. And so the fact is, there's a greater likelihood of somebody looting during a protest if they're in poverty than some rich dude demonstrating and then walking in to steal stuff as well. Usually that doesn't happen. It's usually people in poverty who are A, fed up, B, frustrated, and C, feel like they're backed into a corner. And so then we wonder, okay, so how much would $2,000 per month in stimulus actually solve the underlying issues? And it's not just poverty, right? There's so many more issues. And I'm just gonna direct you to that 25-minute video I did this morning. But let's think specifically about that $2,000 and poverty. And look, I know rioting is bad. We could have a whole debate about white supremacy and Antifa and looting. And look, that's not the point of this. The point of this is simply to ask, if poverty leads to more violence and riots are becoming more violent, would universal basic income reduce the odds of violence in riots and protests in our country and everything? All right, the poverty rate for a single person in the United States is $11,770. That means if you are a single person, you make less than basically $12,000, you are in poverty. For a family of 4, the poverty rate is $24,250. If every adult received $2,000, nobody would be in poverty. It's pretty simple math. You would get $24,000 per adult, which means a single person would basically have twice the income of somebody who is at the poverty line. Now, this might make you think, okay, well, is that just going to create a new poverty line at, basically $24,000 or $24,000 plus what a poor person was making? And see, that's where the answer is no. See, the poverty line is something known as the bread line. It's basically the total cost of everything it's going to take for you as an average human to be able to survive in the United States in a given year. Food, shelter, water, healthcare, commuting, travel, whatever. The basic minimums. That's what establishes the poverty line. If everybody had an annual income of $24,000, it would literally lift everyone out of poverty instantly. Nobody would be in poverty. The only way poverty would return is if there would somehow be a substantial slowdown in the economy or substantial inflation, which in theory, you could solve the inflation problem by just raising the amount of universal basic income adjusted to inflation. Unless, of course, Jerome Powell printed so much money that we would have hyperinflation and then basically the economy would crash and everything would just be bad. We don't really have an answer for that. But that's what's interesting about the $2,000 stimulus check proposal. It only lasts for 6 to 12 months. And so it makes you think, should we try it to see what would happen? Would people, if we had universal basic income for give it 6 months even, for 6 months or 12 months, would it then lift people out of poverty, at least for 6 months to a year, and give people the opportunity to get educated, to save, to get ahead, to plan for the future, to get a better job, to move, to do whatever it is they have to do, so that everybody has the chance at the same opportunities? Somebody left a comment in the last video and said, well, Kevin, we can't talk about whites, blacks. Look, there are plenty of immigrants that come to America and they make it happen all the time. This is true. How do I know that? Because I am one. I was born in Germany and my parents were born in Germany. And we came to America speaking next to zero English, with the exception of my mother, who did learn and study some English in Germany. But see, that's a benefit she had. She went to college. She had the ability to speak English enough to get by. My father was a master carpenter, so they came to this country with substantial skills relative to somebody who might not have any education. And so that's where would universal basic income give people the opportunity or the chance to take advantage of opportunity. I mean, think about these stats for a moment. Only 51% of people in poverty actually enroll in college. Only 18% of people in poverty actually graduate college after 6 years. After 6 years, only 18%, less than 1 in 20 people who end up going to college end up graduating college. So literally, if you had 10 people that were in poverty, only 5 of them would go to college, and of those 5, only 1 of them would actually graduate after 6 years. That means you literally have 1 out of 10 people who are in poverty graduating college after 6 years. And unfortunately, people who only have a high school degree and no college have 3 times the unemployment rate of people with a college degree. And this helps explain why people with a college degree make about $1,400 per week, where people with just a high school degree make about half that, $718 per week. And if you had no high school because you had to drop out, your income would go down to a median income of $515 per week. And so if the United States is serious about equality, it should really consider some form of income support, at least try it for a certain period of time. And don't get me wrong, I just want to be fully transparent here, okay? I'm not trying to push or peddle any kind of agenda. I mean, suggesting universal basic income hurts me. I don't benefit from universal basic income. Put an income threshold in there, which there should be. I mean, anybody making over, let's say, $100,000 a year probably shouldn't be getting universal basic income, right? And so I'm not going to benefit from this. But I do think in the long run, if people are lifted out of poverty and people can actually have the opportunity to take advantage of the opportunities the United States provides, our economy will be much better off. Think about it. More people out of poverty means more people shopping at Amazon, which means my Amazon stock goes up. More people able to drive cars and get better jobs means eventually more people are going to buy Teslas because everybody's going to end up owning a Tesla, and my Tesla stocks will do better. But I don't want to come across as taking sides, like left, right, or whatever. I'm just looking at the data and trying to understand. There are some major issues in the United States right now. And to me, it seems like the perfect opportunity to try even a 6-month period of universal basic income. It would be very fascinating to to see what would happen if we lifted everybody in poverty out of poverty, at least for 6 months. See what would happen. Give people the chance they haven't had. Now, there are some potential downsides of universal basic income. In fact, Brian Kaplan, a professor of economics at George Mason University, suggests that universal basic income could be bad for 3 reasons. Number one, he suggests, look, some people who are going to get universal basic income are just going to make poor choices anyway. That is, look, if you give money to people that make poor choices now, they're not automatically going to make better choices. But that doesn't mean everybody in poverty is going to make bad choices, right? There's a good chance, in my opinion at least, and I don't have this data, so I'm going to be very clear, this is my opinion. My opinion is that the majority of people in poverty would get lifted out of poverty and would hopefully be able to stay out of poverty. If you can build some kind of foundation, you could stay out of poverty. The second argument Brian makes is he says relative poverty won't change by giving everybody relative, $2,000 per month of basic income. And this is something you hear about, like the Gini coefficient and relative poverty versus absolute poverty. Look, here's the thing. People are always going to compare themselves to each other. Even millionaires compare each other to each other, and, billionaires compare themselves to each other. Everybody's always comparing each other. That's not going to change no matter how much universal basic income you give everybody. That's duh. I mean, even if income and money weren't an issue, people would compare each other on other things. So I'm not so worried about relative poverty. I think what matters more is absolute poverty. And this is what we don't know the answer to that. We do know that if everybody got $2,000 a month, everybody would instantly be out of poverty. No poverty anymore. All poverty in the United States would be gone instantly. The question is, could we sustain that, and what would it take to sustain that? And I think that's really where the bigger question is. Yeah, you could lift everybody out, but can you sustain it? See, look, $2,000 per month times 39 million people in poverty would cost the country $78 billion per month. Times 12 months, it would cost nearly $1 trillion to have $2,000 per month of universal basic income per year. That's about 5% of our entire economy would go towards helping people out of poverty, making sure our country has zero poverty, which the reality is, that's a huge question to debate. There are a lot of people who think, well, it's your problem. And there are just as many people who think, hey, in all fairness, as the richest country in the world, we should not have poverty, and we could go like this and solve all poverty. But since we don't yet have a clear indication of what the actual costs and benefits of universal basic income would be in the United States, you have to wonder, wouldn't it make sense to try it for 6 months, especially during a time like now, where we're clearly in a recession, we're probably in a depressionary economic environment? Would it make sense to have universal basic income now for the next 6 months? And then let's see. Let's give eliminating poverty a chance within the United States. Look, over the world, over 40% of people live in poverty. There's not enough money to go around for everyone, which is terrible as well. But for a moment, ask yourself, is it something that should be tried? Well, there you go, folks. Thank you so much for watching this. If you made it all the way through, thank you. I really appreciate you.